What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, well, we need to continue our look at Worlds Collide now, don't we? The new Keyforge expansion. It's out in a little over a week, so we should look at some new cards, and today I want to be focusing on, well, logos. I love me some logos. Don't tell anyone, but they might be becoming my very favourite house. And they've always been pretty good at drawing cards, so I thought it would be worth a look at all of the cards in Worlds Collide that help them draw more cards. And there are actually a bunch of them that do so. Though before we get to that, I do think it is worth very quickly reminding ourselves about Dataforge. Now, Dataforge is a phenomenal new key cheating card, which is coming out in Worlds Collide. And it gives you an amber bonus, and then allows you to forge a key at plus 10 current cost, reduced by 1 for each card in your hand. So in theory here, if you can get enough cards in your hand, and archiving helps here as well, then you can forge a key rather cheaply. So the question then becomes, alright, how do we get extra cards in our hand? And I thought it might be fun to start off having a little bit of a look at Daughter. Now, Daughter might seem a little bit familiar because, of course, back in Call of the Archons, we had a card which was in logos that was called Mother. Cool, right? And Daughter is very reminiscent of Mother. Now, it is a 2-power creature rather than a 5-power creature, but it has elusive, which very much helps to keep it on the board. And it reads, during your draw card step, refill your hand to 1 additional card. Which people with a good memory or the ability to read the cards on the screen at the moment might recognize is literally exactly the same as Mother. Like, exactly the same as Mother. It does the same thing. The only difference is it goes from a 5-power to a 2-power, but gains elusive. Now, I'll be honest with you, right? It's easier to take out a creature with 2 power, generally speaking. Now, if you want to fight them and take them out, then you've got to break the elusive. You've got to attack with something so they're no longer elusive, and then attack with something else. But there's so many cards around that do what I like to term cheeky damage that it really is not the most difficult thing in the world to get rid of them. I don't think it is quite as good as Mother. I'd rather have the extra free bulk. But Mother's been out since Call of the Archons. So we've all been able to have a good look at whether Mother is or is not good. And the verdict is in, Mother is a really good card. It's seen a lot of play. Frankly, it's proven its worth. But maybe refilling your hand to 1 additional card isn't enough. Maybe you want to refill your hand to more than 1 additional card. In which case, might I introduce you to Zenzizenzizenzic, a 4-power, 2-armor creature. And this is one of them their leaders on which I did a video recently. And to be fair, right, 2 armor is quite good. You don't see much armor in logos. And this reads, during your draw card step, refill your hand to 2 additional battle cards. Surely there must be a catch. Well, there is a catch. It must be in the center of your battle line. Now, this is actually different from all of the other leaders in Worlds Collide. So if we have a look at, for instance, Captain Valjericho, the leader of the Grand Star Alliance, during your turn, if she's in the center of your battle line, you may play 1 card that is not of the active house. And that works whether it's a Grand Star Alliance turn or not. So, Captain Valjericho doesn't need to be in the middle of your battle line at the end of your turn, just in the center of your battle line at 1 point during your turn. Any point during your turn. That is not the case with Zenzizenzizenzic. You see, Zenzizenzizenzic has to be in the center of your battle line at the end of your turn, which makes it very awkward, but it also lets you draw 2 additional cards. And then, of course, let's not forget that you could have this in a deck with Daughter, or maybe even a couple of Daughters, and then all of a sudden you're drawing 4 extra cards at the end of your turn. That's gonna add up pretty gosh darn quickly. And while we're looking at creatures, let's have a look at Babling Bibliophile. Now, it is a 1-power creature with no elusive. No protection of any kind. It could not be weaker. But when you reap, you draw 2 cards. And that's awesome. Like, really awesome. Back in Call of the Archons, we got old Doc Buckton that drew 1 card when you reaped. This draws 2. That's better. Now, to be fair, this is not actually as good as Professor Sutterkin, who we got in Age of Ascension. Professor Sutterkin was kind of a little bit over the top, in that when you reaped, you drew a card for each friendly Logos creature, and not each friendly ready Logos creature. That is to say that you could then, during your turn, play 3 Logos creatures, and then immediately reap and you'd get 3 extra cards. And I've played some games at side events at the Birmingham Vault Tour with decks including Professor Sutterkin, and essentially what happened was every time it hit the field except 1 game, my opponent just took it out immediately. On the game they didn't, I drew like 1 billion cards and won, but you gotta be careful here. There are certain characters that will be hunted down when you play them. Burn the witch cards, as Alex might call them. And definitely Professor Sutterkin is one of those. Is Babling Bibliophile of the same level of, oh my goodness? Not entirely sure. It's only 2 cards, but 2 cards can be pretty huge, and it's 2 cards that you get to use right now. It's better than Doc Buckton. It's not as good as Professor Sutterkin most of the time. Now, bearing in mind, Professor Sutterkin will always draw 1 card for itself, so as long as you've got 1 other card on the field, it's as good. And of course, Babling Bibliophile, like all creatures, will go, well, almost all creatures, will hit the field exhausted, which means you've got to wait until your next Logos turn to actually use it. Will it still be there on your next Logos turn? I'll be honest with you. There's a fairly good chance it won't be. And that makes me a little bit sad. Great creature, but with 1 power, it just literally might not be there when you actually come around to using it. Boo! But how about a creature we've not actually had a look at before? How about Hapsis? Hapsis comes along as a 5 power creature, no armor, and after an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Hapsis, you ward it and draw a card. Now, the warding here is extremely important, because a ward counter basically means you whack the ward counter on, and then if a creature would be damaged or removed from play, you remove the ward counter, the creature stays around. And this basically kind of gives it skirmish, in a way. It means that you can pick a fight with someone, instead of being damaged, you'll lose your ward counter, and then you draw a card. It guarantees that you'll survive any fight. The difference with a ward counter is it will work if your opponent attacks you, not just if you start the fight. And if a creature attacks you and gets destroyed, you do get to draw the card. It reminds me quite a bit of Quixo the Adventurer, in that Quixo the Adventurer had skirmish, which meant it would survive a fight that it started, and then drew a card when it survived the fight, which it would if it started it. I like this more than Quixo the Adventurer. I like the 5 power. I like that warding is so much more adaptable than skirmish. And I like the fact that it works when your opponent attacks you, not just when you attack them. Because remember, fight skills like Quixo the Adventurer only actually work if you start the fight. Now, there's a couple of other creatures we can talk about. They have been mentioned in videos before, so we'll be moderately quick. Titan Guardian is a 5 power, 1 armor creature. Frankly, when we're talking about Logos, not the biggest, baddest house in terms of pure bulk. This is pretty good. It has Taunt, meaning that the neighbors of Titan Guardian won't be attacked. Your opponent has to go after Titan Guardian. And if it's destroyed, and it is not on a flank, you draw 2 cards. Now remember, it's got Taunt, so your opponent cannot just destroy its neighbor to put it on a flank and then destroy it, because you've got Taunt. So the vast majority of the time when it's destroyed, you're going to get 2 cards. I like the fact that it's big and bulky and you force your opponent to take out a big bulky creature and then you get 2 cards for the trouble. Honestly, As a creature that can sit there and do some damage, I like it. As a drawing engine, it's fine. Now, Candle Unit is one that I very much like. Might be one of my favourite creatures from Worlds Collide. 5 power, 1 armour, which is, again, weirdly bulky. After an enemy creature reaps, draw a card. Now, what I love about this is it's during your opponent's turn. So let's say they reap 4 times, you draw 4 cards. Well, you've drawn until you have 6 cards at the end of your turn. Potentially more if you've got stuff like Daughter or Zenzizenzizenzic. And then you gain extra cards during their turn, which are there. So you might legitimately be starting your turn with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards in your hand. And we've all had these turns where, at least I hope you have, it's kind of sad if you haven't, where you end up with these giant hands of cards and oh my goodness, it gets very fun very quickly. And actually here you can add in that you've got an action that captures an amber and it's all looking rather nice. Hyde. 4 power, no armour, and when you reap you draw a card. It's fine. I mean, look, it's Doc Bookdom, but with less power, so it's not as good. But if you control Vellum, then you draw 2 cards when you reap, making it essentially Babling Bibliophile, but with 4 power rather than 1 and the chance to actually stay around. Not to mention the fact that when it's destroyed, you archive Vellum from your discard pile and then archive Hyde, meaning that Hyde is going to come back around far more often than something like Babling Bibliophile would, and I'm kind of cool with it. We've then got an action we can talk about, Tautau Vapors. When you play it, you draw 2 and archive a card. And because it's an action card, there's no mucking about here. You draw 2 cards, you archive a card. Archive, you stash it in your archive, and at the beginning of your turn, you may choose to either pick up your entire archive or none of your archive. It's an all or nothing thing, but you have the opportunity to pick up your archive. So what you can do is draw 2 cards, and then after you've drawn 2 and built up your hand a bit, then you can choose a card in your hand to go ahead and archive, ready to use later when you want it. All in favour. And finally, Academy Training. If you control this creature, it belongs to House Logos instead of its original house. So it's one of those where you pop the upgrade on and you actually change the house affiliation of the creature in question. And it gains Reap, draw a card. As a side note, yes, if you put this on Babling Bibliophile, then all of a sudden when you reap, you draw 3 cards, for instance. I don't think you should put this on it, for fairly obvious reasons. 1 power creature, easily destroyed. But we've talked about the whole reap, draw a card thing. It's good. What I really like here is it's an upgrade, not a creature. With a creature like Babling Bibliophile, you've always got to leave it a turn, and then on your second Logo's turn after you play it, it's ready and you can reap and get the cards. What's great about Academy Training is you can wait until a creature is already ready, and then you can just immediately attach it and then reap and gain the amber for reaping and draw the card. That's the advantage you have here with it being an upgrade. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Frankly, we got a lot of options, as we probably expected there would be, for drawing cards with logos in Worlds Collide. It's what logos do. And maybe that's one of the reasons I like it so much. Maybe that's one of the reasons I'm really softening towards logos. Logos is a fun house. Do any of these cards have the raw draw potential of a Professor Sutterkin or a library access? No, frankly. Are any of them as flat out good as Time Traveller? Arguably not. And as a side note, Worlds Collide is the only one of the 3 sets where Time Traveller will not be featured. That doesn't mean you can't get it as a legacy card. Yes, you can get it as a legacy card. But frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it's not in the set proper, and that makes me sad. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are all of the new options for drawing cards in Logos in Worlds Collide. And at this stage, I'd like to know what you think about them. Which one is your favourite? And whether you think Logos is going to be good in Worlds Collide. Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about, well, games. Like Keyforge, but really any games that take my fancy. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.